My daughter-in-law, Sarah, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, told me her mother was coming to live with us. The words themselves were so simple, so casually delivered, but they struck me like a cold, heavy stone right there in my own kitchen. In that instant, I understood with a clarity that stung that I no longer had a family. Not really. What I had were just people. People who were simply waiting for me to disappear, waiting for me to fade away, to become nothing more than a forgotten whisper in the halls of the house I had built. They saw me, I knew, as a fragile, forgetful old woman. That was their quiet assessment. They believed I had given everything away, poured my entire life's earnings, every ounce of my love, into this home and into them. And now I was just occupying a corner, a dusty, easily overlooked corner. They imagined I served no purpose anymore, that my time was done, that I was simply a burden to be tolerated until I was gone for good. But oh, how profoundly wrong they were. Little did they know that my memory, my very sharp, very precise memory, was the one thing that still truly, absolutely belonged to me. It was a secret, hidden vault, brimming with every detail, every slight, every single moment that had led me to this exact point. Sarah kept on talking, her voice light, airy, as if she were discussing the weather or a pleasant holiday. She spoke of plans for my room, the one I had slept in for decades, the one that held the quiet scent of my life, the soft echoes of my past dreams. She talked about new curtains, a different color scheme, all the fresh changes she envisioned. She explained how her mother, Joyce, needed space, how she deserved comfort, implying without ever needing to say the words out loud, "Ma." Each word she uttered felt like a tiny, invisible needle pricking at the raw edges of my heart. It was a silent humiliation, the kind that leaves no outward bruise, but aches deep, deep inside your bones. As she prattled on, completely oblivious to the quiet devastation she was weaving with her casual words, my mind drifted away. It went to a place only I knew about. I could almost feel it, right there in the back of my wardrobe. That old, unassuming leather folder of documents. A folder they had never, not once, bothered to read carefully. Oh no, why would they? For them, my love was unconditional, a bottomless well they could draw from endlessly, without ever needing to give anything back. And my submission? That was simply guaranteed, wasn't it? A given fact. They saw me as a closed chapter, a story finished and filed away, neat and tidy. But the truth is, I hadn't yet written the last page of my story. Not by a long shot. Standing there, listening intently, just nodding my head occasionally, as if I were in complete agreement, a strange calm washed over me. A calm I hadn't felt in years, maybe even decades. It wasn't the calm of resignation, not at all. It was something far more potent. It was the quiet, steady calm of someone who holds a pen firmly in their hand and who knows with every fiber of their being that they have the power to change the ending of everything. They were so incredibly busy, so absorbed in planning their future, their bright new life in my house. They were so sure, so absolutely certain that they forgot one crucial, devastating detail. The house was only theirs on paper. The final decision, the ultimate power, that was always, always mine. And that day, as I stood there, watching them celebrate their new resident, their hopeful, self-serving future, I began to plan. My departure, yes, but also, quite firmly and quite clearly, theirs. The air in the kitchen, usually so warm and familiar, suddenly felt crisp, charged with an unspoken tension that only I could feel. I just looked at them, a silent observer in my own home, already a ghost in their eyes. And a different kind of calm settled deep within me, a profound, unwavering peace that came from knowing that the game had just changed. The pieces were still on the board, but the next move, the truly impactful one, was mine. My name is Evelyn. I'm 72 years old, and if you really want to know my story, just look at my hands. They're not delicate, not anymore. They're calloused, a bit gnarled, from pushing fabric through my old sewing machine. That machine, it's been my constant companion for decades. It's the same one that hummed late into the night, paying for my only son, Michael's education. I was everything to him, his mother and his father. Every single brick of this house, every plank of wood, was laid with money I earned, stitch by painful stitch, sewing from home, working through nights to deliver orders on time. I built this place with my own two hands, with my own sweat and tears, to be our nest, a safe harbor for the family I always dreamed of having. When Michael finally got married, my heart just swelled with joy. It truly did. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, she seemed so sweet, so kind. To ensure his happiness, to make sure they had the best start, I did what any mother would do, what I believed was the right thing. I signed the house over to him and to Sarah. It was an act of pure, unconditional love, a way of saying, "This is yours now. This is your home. Take care of each other." Besides the house, I even made a will, leaving everything I'd accumulated my entire life to them. It wasn't much, just some savings in the bank, but it was absolutely everything I had. I truly, honestly believed that with this, I would have a peaceful old age, surrounded by their love and respect. That was my dream, and at first, it was like a dream come true. Everything was perfect, truly a bed of roses. Sunday lunches were filled with laughter. Michael called me every day. Sarah would hug me and say, "I love you, Mom," and it just warmed my soul, right down to my toes. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world, living in the home I built with the family I had always, always dreamed of having. I'd tidy the house, just like always, bake my son's favorite cake, the chocolate one with the extra frosting, and mend their clothes with the same affection I always had. I was happy, just happy to be useful, to be a part of their lives, to be needed. But what I didn't realize, not then, not with my heart so full of hope, was that for them, my love wasn't love at all. It was just an asset. And my presence? Well, that had an expiry date. But what I didn't realize, not then, not with my heart so full of hope, was that for them, my love wasn't love at all. It was just an asset. And my presence? Well, that had an expiry date. Gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. It wasn't a sudden storm, more like a slow, creeping fog that thickened day by day. Michael, my son, the boy I raised, his calls started to grow shorter. They used to be these long, rambling conversations, full of laughter and updates about his day, about Sarah, about his work. Now, they were almost perfunctory, quick bursts of words, like he was checking off a chore on a list. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" "Good. Gotta go. Love you." The "love you" felt more like an afterthought, a habit, than something truly felt. His visits to my room, too, changed. They used to be a little ritual. He'd bring his coffee, sit on the edge of my bed, and we'd just chat, really talk for 20 minutes, sometimes more. But then, they turned into quick glances. He'd just poke his head in, eyes darting around the space, not at me. It was like he was inspecting the room, assessing it, rather than simply visiting his mother. A lump would form in my throat each time, but I'd swallow it down, tell myself I was imagining things, that he was just busy. Then there was Sarah, my daughter-in-law, my sweet Sarah, who I had embraced like my own daughter. She stopped asking me to help in the kitchen. She used to call me in, ask for my opinion on a recipe, have me chop vegetables while we talked. Now, she just did everything herself. She started making all the decisions for the house, all of them. From the color of the living room walls, a stark gray I didn't care for, to what we would eat for dinner, she decided. Always with the same excuse. "Oh, Evelyn, don't worry. I don't want to tire you out." It sounded kind, but it felt like a dismissal. Like I was fragile, useless, someone to be kept out of the way. My hands, the hands that built this home, felt idle, restless, useless. I started to feel like a stranger in my own home, the home I had poured my entire life into. Every creak of the floorboards, every worn patch on the rug, it all held a memory for me. But now, those memories felt lonely. One afternoon, I was walking by the living room, heading to get a glass of water, when I heard them, Michael and Sarah, whispering. Their voices were low, but the words carried. They were talking about my sewing room. "Wasted space," Sarah murmured. My sewing room, the place where I had spent countless hours, where my machine still hummed with life, where my craft had brought me so much joy. The place that paid for Michael's future. They talked about how that corner, my corner, could be transformed into a modern office, they said. For Michael, perhaps, or for guests. They didn't ask me. They didn't even acknowledge my presence, thinking I was still in my room. I stood there, hidden by the hallway archway, listening, my heart sinking lower with each word. I saw them, just saw them visually measuring the walls with their eyes, planning a future for this house, where my things, my beloved sewing machine, my memories, and perhaps even myself, would no longer be there. The pain wasn't sharp, not like a sudden stab. It was a tiny, persistent sadness that settled in slowly like fine dust, coating everything inside me. It was a dull ache that just wouldn't go away. I tried to talk to Michael. I really did. I pulled him aside one evening, when Sarah was out. "Michael," I said, my voice quiet, "is something wrong? Have I done something? You both seem distant." He looked at me, not really looking into my eyes, but past them. He deflected. He said it was all in my head, that I was becoming too sensitive in my old age. He said they loved me. Of course, what was I talking about? But I saw it then, so clearly. In his eyes, I saw the same coldness, the same calculated indifference I had started to see in Sarah's. They were united, my son and his wife, united in a plan that, I realized with a sickening certainty, simply didn't include me. And the deep, abiding love I felt for them, a love that had always been my anchor, it had blinded me to the truth that was right in front of me, shining bright and cold. With each passing day, I felt more invisible, like a ghost, a quiet, shuffling ghost, wandering through the rooms I myself had built, the rooms that echoed with the laughter of a younger, happier Evelyn. My presence became a whisper, unheard, unwanted, and the silence in the house, once a comfort, now felt heavy, suffocating. I just watched, listened, and waited, a hollow space growing where my heart used to be. The silence in the house, once a comfort, now felt heavy, suffocating. I just watched, listened, and waited, a hollow space growing where my heart used to be. The day it all truly exploded, the day the quiet fog finally became a blinding storm, was a Saturday afternoon. We were all three of us at the kitchen table, just after a late lunch. The usual sounds of a weekend afternoon, the distant chirping of birds, the hum of the refrigerator, they all seemed to fade away. The air was thick, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Michael was on his phone, as usual, scrolling through whatever endlessly held his attention. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, sat across from me. She took a sip of her tea, placed the cup down with a delicate clink, and then after a long silence that seemed to stretch on forever, she spoke. Her voice was light, casual, as if she were discussing the weather. "Evelyn," she said with the utmost nonchalance, "I have news. My mother, Joyce, is coming to live with us. She's very lonely, and there's plenty of space here." The way she said us, it hit me then, a sharp, cold jab in my chest. The word itself was a careful, calculated exclusion. It made it clear, with chilling precision, that I wasn't part of the equation. Michael didn't even look up. He just kept scrolling on his phone, his thumb moving rhythmically, as if this were the most mundane announcement in the world. No more significant than deciding what to have for dinner. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't even form a coherent thought. All I could feel was a sudden, dizzying emptiness. She just continued, completely oblivious to the world that was crumbling around me. Her voice was calm, almost cheerful, as she explained it all. Her mother, Joyce, would stay in my room, the one I had slept in for 40 years, the one with the window that caught the morning sun just so, where I read my books, where I stitched my dreams into fabric. It was the largest room, Sarah said, the most airy, perfect for her mother. And my sewing machine, my old singer, my lifelong companion, the machine that had hummed through my lonely nights and paid for every single thing in this house. That, she said, would be moved to a damp corner in the garage. A damp corner. Like it was just a piece of old junk, something to be discarded and forgotten. They weren't asking for my permission. There was no question in her voice, no hint of a choice for me. They were informing me of a fact, a done deal. I would be moved. I would be displaced. Like old furniture, just pushed aside to make room for another person. In the house I had built, with my sweat, my tears, my very essence. The humiliation was silent, but it was profound. It didn't make me cry out. It just felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet, leaving me suspended in a terrifying void. In that moment, I was no longer the mother. I was no longer the mother-in-law. I was no longer the homeowner. I was an obstacle, a problem to be managed, a nuisance to be dealt with. I looked at my son, Michael. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. I looked at him, searching his face, his eyes, for a word, a gesture, anything that would tell me he remembered me, that he still cared, that he would defend me. But he simply nodded. He nodded at his wife. A quiet, almost imperceptible movement, but it sealed my fate. It was a silent agreement, a quiet betrayal that spoke louder than any shout. He didn't meet my gaze. He couldn't. And in that awful, deafening silence, I understood. The love I had given them so freely, so completely, had not created roots. It hadn't built a stronger family. No, it had only created debts of gratitude. And now, they were eager to repay those debts by discarding me, by erasing me, just like an unwanted memory. And in that awful, deafening silence, I understood. The love I had given them so freely, so completely, had not created roots. It hadn't built a stronger family. No, it had only created debts of gratitude. And now they were eager to repay those debts by discarding me, by erasing me, just like an unwanted memory. As they began to babble, their voices overlapping, filled with an almost giddy excitement about paint colors and moving logistics, and how Joyce's antique dresser would fit perfectly where my old bookshelf used to be, a strange, cold lucidity took hold of me. It wasn't sadness anymore, not primarily. It was a clarity, sharp and precise, like the edge of a newly sharpened needle. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. My lips didn't even twitch to form an argument. There was nothing to argue about, really. Their intentions were laid bare, stark and undeniable. I simply stood up from the kitchen table. The chair scraped against the tiled floor. A small, loud sound in the sudden quiet of my own determined movement. I looked at Michael, at Sarah, their faces still flushed with their casual cruelty. And then I said, my voice surprisingly steady, almost flat, I need to rest. It wasn't a request. It was an announcement. A small, firm statement of my immediate intention. I didn't wait for a response, didn't look back. I just turned and walked away, towards my room, the room that was supposedly no longer mine. The pain was still there, of course. It was a searing, tearing ache right in the center of my chest, like a gaping wound. But beneath it, deep, deep down, a different sensation began to stir. A warmth, a flicker. It was a strength I didn't even remember having, a forgotten ember, beginning to glow in the ashes of my broken heart. They probably mistook my silence for weakness. My calm, they must have believed, was the calm of defeat. They must have thought I was finally broken, pliable, ready to be moved into any damp corner they chose. Oh, how wrong they were. That was their biggest mistake, truly. A monumental, profound error in judgment. I closed my bedroom door softly behind me. The click of the latch was a small, satisfying sound of finality. My gaze went straight to my wardrobe, an old, sturdy piece of furniture that had been with me for decades, holding not just my clothes, but so many hidden layers of my life. Deep inside, beneath piles of sheets I had embroidered myself, sheets with delicate patterns sewn with quiet patience over countless evenings, was the old leather folder. It was worn, a bit dusty, unassuming. To anyone else, it looked like nothing important. But it held my entire world, my hands, these old, calloused hands that had created so much, reached for it. They trembled a little as I pulled it out, not from fear, no, but from a certainty so absolute it hummed through my veins. A quiet, terrifying certainty. I carried it to my armchair, the one by the window where the morning sun used to warm my lap, where I used to dream of a family that loved me unconditionally. I opened the folder. Inside were the documents that bound me to this house, to them. The copy of the house's deed of gift, and my will, the one that left them everything. My eyes scanned the first document, the deed of gift, and there they were. The clauses, the ones the lawyer, a kind, careful woman named Mrs. Peterson, had insisted I include. "For security, Evelyn," she had said, her voice gentle but firm. "Just in case. You never know." I remember her words so clearly now. Clauses that stated the donation could be revoked due to ingratitude. Revoked due to ingratitude. The words stood out, stark and powerful, on the yellowed paper. In that moment, as I read those words, a profound shift happened within me. I was no longer Evelyn, the seamstress, the gentle, good mother who sacrificed everything. No, I was a woman who had been pushed to the absolute limit. I saw my son's face again in my mind's eye, his averted gaze, his utter indifference to my pain just moments ago. And the decision, born of a quiet, burning resolve, formed in my mind. It was clear, solid as a rock. They had forgotten who I was. They had forgotten what I was capable of. They had underestimated me so completely, so fatally, and that truly would be their biggest mistake. My plan wasn't about revenge. Not really. Revenge felt small, petty. This was about something much larger, much deeper. It was about reclaiming my dignity, piece by piece, stitch by stitch. A slow, deliberate unraveling of the threads they thought they held over me. I just sat there, the folder resting on my lap, the silence of the room filled only by the quiet hum of my new, terrifying resolve. And I began to plan my own way, my own path. The following week was a silent torment. Every day felt longer than the last, stretching out into an endless, suffocating silence. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, seemed to float through the house on a cloud of oblivious excitement. I would hear her constantly talking to her mother, Joyce, on speakerphone. Her voice, bright and chirpy, would echo through the supposedly quiet halls of my home, describing the new room, my room, with such vivid, joyful detail. She'd talk about how they would redecorate everything, the new paint colors, the arrangement of furniture, all of it. It was as if I wasn't even there, a ghost haunting the very space she was so eagerly planning to fill with someone else. She would pass by me in the hallway or when I was sitting quietly in the living room, and she'd offer me a smile. It wasn't a kind smile or a loving one. It was a pitiful smile, edged with what felt like a patronizing sort of pity. As if I were a child, a small, confused child who didn't understand what was happening around her, a child to be humored and gently managed. She didn't even realize the subtle cruelty woven into that expression, the quiet condescension that pierced right through me. To her, I was just a senile old woman, easily fooled, easily dismissed. Michael, my son, my only son, became a phantom in his own home. He avoided me completely. If he ever crossed paths with me in the hallway, his eyes would immediately dart away, his head would lower, almost imperceptibly, and he would quicken his pace, vanishing into another room or out the front door. He couldn't bear to look at me, couldn't bear to face the quiet accusation that I knew lingered in my own eyes, though I never spoke a word. The love I had once known from him, the warmth, the casual affection, it had simply evaporated. The air in the house grew heavier with each passing day. It felt thick, suffocating, like a blanket of dust and unspoken truths settling over everything. Every breath felt like a struggle. The height of their disregard, the very peak of their thoughtless cruelty, happened on Friday. I was in the kitchen, making myself a cup of tea, when the doorbell rang. Sarah, predictably, flew to open it. It was a delivery, a large rectangular package, addressed to Sarah's mother, Joyce. I watched as Sarah tore into the packaging with a bright, almost childish glee. Inside, neatly folded, were new curtains, made of expensive fabric, rich and flowing. So my room, the room that was no longer considered mine. Sarah held them up, letting the fabric cascade down, shimmering in the afternoon light. Her face glowed with excitement. She turned to me, her eyes shining, completely, utterly blind to the knife she was twisting in my heart. "Look, Evelyn," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "Aren't these just beautiful? Won't Mom's room look absolutely lovely with these?" Mom's room, Joyce's room. She didn't even realize the sheer, horrifying cruelty in what she was saying. To her, I no longer existed in that space. I had already been erased. My memories, my life, my presence there, all of it wiped clean by new fabric and a selfish, grasping future. I stood there, motionless, my tea growing cold in my hands. The silence was deafening, broken only by Sarah's cheerful murmurs about where to hang the new rods. That night, sleep was impossible. My mind raced, replaying every condescending smile, every averted gaze, every casual word that chipped away at my existence. I got out of bed, unable to rest, and sat in my old armchair. The room felt colder now, already stripped of its warmth, of its sense of belonging. My gaze fell upon my sewing machine, silent and still in the corner. Then to the pictures on the wall, faded photographs of Michael as a boy, a family portrait from happier times, a small framed embroidery piece I had made decades ago. Each object, each thread, each memory told a part of my story, the story they were trying so desperately to erase with new curtains and selfish plans, as if my entire life could be simply swept away. The loneliness was immense, an emptiness so vast it felt physical. I was completely alone in that house, surrounded by people who should have protected me, who should have cherished me, but instead they only wanted what I could offer, what I possessed, waiting for me to wither and disappear. The pain reached its absolute peak that night, a raw, burning ache that consumed me. But along with it, alongside that profound, crushing despair, came something else. A cold, hard certainty. A profound, unwavering determination was born in the deepest part of my soul. Love, the love I had always believed in, the love that had defined my life, had died. And in its place, something fierce and unyielding had taken root. I knew with every fiber of my being that I needed to act. The time for waiting was over. The time for them to win was not. I knew with every fiber of my being that I needed to act. The time for waiting was over. The time for them to win was not. The sun was barely up on Saturday morning when I heard it, the rumble of a heavy engine, the distinctive squeal of air brakes. It was the moving truck. Joyce's moving truck. My daughter-in-law's mother was here. I walked to my bedroom window, the one I had looked out of every morning for decades, and watched. Down below, the large, boxy vehicle was backing slowly into our driveway, filling the space like a monstrous intruder. Michael and Sarah were already outside, waving at the driver, their faces bright with smiles, too eager, too full of their own plans to notice anything else. They were laughing, pointing at boxes, gesturing towards the front door. They looked so happy, so utterly at ease with what they were doing, what they were taking. Michael glanced up then, just for a second. His eyes met mine, briefly, through the glass. He even gave me a small, almost perfunctory wave, a quick flick of his hand, urging me to open the door, to join them, to be a part of their cheerful charade. That was it. That small, careless gesture was the last straw, the one that snapped the final thread of my patience, of my hope for them. A cold, quiet resolve settled deep within my bones. I took a deep, steadying breath, one that felt like it filled every corner of my empty heart. Then I turned from the window. My hands, still trembling slightly, reached for the old leather document folder I had placed on my nightstand. It felt heavy, substantial, in my grip. I clutched my small, already packed purse and walked towards the door. Each step I took down the familiar stairs felt deliberate, measured, imbued with a calm that surprised even me, a calm that tasted like freedom. They were in the living room, exactly as I had expected. Joyce, Sarah's mother, was already there, beaming, looking very much at home. She sat on my sofa, holding a glass, already part of the family, or what was left of it. Michael and Sarah were raising their own glasses, clinking them together, toasting. Toasting the new phase, they called it. Toasting their future, built on the ashes of my past. The air was thick with their self-congratulation, with the quiet hum of their victory. I walked directly to the coffee table, a beautiful antique piece I'd inherited from my own mother. With quiet precision, I placed 2 envelopes down, right in the center, between their toasting glasses. The clink of the envelopes against the polished wood was the only sound in the room for a moment. Michael looked at me, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. He didn't like being interrupted. "Mom," he said, his voice laced with annoyance. "What is this? Now isn't the time." He was about to tell me to go back to my room. I could feel it. He was about to dismiss me again. I looked at him then. Really looked. At Sarah, whose face was still flushed with her celebration. And then at Joyce, who watched us with an unblinking curiosity. A stranger already claiming her stake. My voice, when it came, was firm, clear, unwavering. It didn't crack, it didn't tremble. "It is the exact time," I said, my gaze sweeping over all 3 of them. "This first envelope is a legal notification." I watched their smiles falter, watched their faces subtly shift from triumphant to confused. The donation of this house was officially revoked this morning due to ingratitude. The house is mine again. The silence in the room was absolute. It was a thick, heavy blanket suffocating them. Their glasses, still poised for celebration, slowly lowered. Their smiles, so recently wide and beaming, vanished, wiped clean from their faces. Sarah stammered first, her voice weak, barely a whisper. "That's impossible. The house is ours. You signed it over." She sounded incredulous, desperate. That's when I opened the second envelope. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, crisp and new. "And this," I continued, holding the paper up for them to see, "is my new will. The old one, the one that left everything I had to you both, that one has been annulled. It was canceled yesterday. You are no longer listed in it. The house, my savings, everything I have accumulated my entire life will be donated to a charity for the elderly." The shock on their faces was the answer I needed. Sarah gasped, a small, choked sound. Joyce, for the first time, looked truly stunned, her composure crumbling. Michael, my son, finally faced me. His eyes, usually so cold and distant, were wide now, filled with a raw, disbelieving horror. It was as if he were seeing me for the very first time. His mouth opened. He tried to speak, tried to form words, but I simply raised my hand, a quiet, definitive gesture that silenced him. "The house was sold yesterday," I said, my voice still steady, calm. "The new owners arrive in 30 days. You have 1 month to leave." I didn't yell. There was no anger in my voice, no trace of the bitterness that had gnawed at me for so long. Just a quiet, unyielding finality. I simply picked up my purse, the one I had packed so carefully, with just my essentials, and turned towards the front door. I didn't look back at their stunned faces, their ruined celebration. Dignity was the only baggage I insisted on taking. The house, the money, the memories they had tried to erase, none of that mattered anymore. All that mattered was the quiet, profound peace I felt. Walking away. I just walked, and the door closed softly behind me, leaving them in the echoing silence of what they thought was theirs. My story was far from over. It had just begun. I didn't go to a palace, you know? That's not how life works. I just went to a small, rented apartment, a modest place on the third floor of an old building, but it had a window, a good one that caught the morning sun. The first thing I did, the very first thing after settling my few boxes, was go to the local nursery and buy a fern, a simple green plant. I placed it right there, on the windowsill, where the light could touch it. It felt like a small act of hope, a quiet declaration that this was my space now, and I would fill it with life. Then I set up my old sewing machine, the same one that had hummed through so many of my nights. But this time it was different. I wasn't setting it up out of obligation, not for bills or demands. I was setting it up for pleasure, just for me. It was about creating. I'd wake up, make my coffee just the way I liked it, strong and black, and sit by the window, watching the street wake up. I'd read the newspaper, not just the headlines, but the quiet stories, the human interest pieces. In the late afternoon, when the sun started to mellow, I'd walk in the little park nearby, just for myself, to breathe the fresh air, to feel the sun on my skin. I even started noticing the birds again. While I was there, I met other ladies, women with their own stories of struggle and triumph, of loss and finding their way again. We'd nod, exchange a few words, a shared smile. It was nice just to feel connected, even in these small ways. I don't miss the big, silent house, not anymore. Not the one that had become so full of memories that had begun to hurt, so loud with unspoken disappointments. Here, in this small space, this little apartment with its single sunny window, I feel immense. I feel big, full of myself, full of my own quiet strength. It's like I've regained control of my life, every single stitch and moment of it. Sometimes, yes, sometimes I think of Michael and Sarah. I see their faces, hear their voices, but it's strange, the feeling that comes with it. I don't feel anger, not anymore. I don't feel a desperate desire for revenge or for them to suffer. It's a different emotion altogether. It's a kind of relief, actually. The deep, quiet peace of someone who has finally, after carrying it for so long, shed an enormous weight. It was like I was carrying them, their expectations, their ingratitude, and now my shoulders feel light. I understood something, finally. A true home, a real home, isn't made of bricks and mortar. It's not about how many rooms it has or how expensive the furniture is. It's made of respect. It's made of love. And where there is no respect, where that foundation crumbles, there's simply no point in insisting, no point in holding on. I didn't lose a family, not really. What I did was free myself from an illusion I had clung to for so long. Today, when I look in the mirror, it's not always easy. I still see the same calloused hands, the lines around my eyes that tell of years of work and worry. But beneath those lines, in my eyes themselves, there's a sparkle a light I hadn't seen in a very, very long time. It's the sparkle of autonomy, of knowing I am my own person, and that, after everything, is a beautiful thing. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see the same calloused hands, but I see a sparkle in my eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time, the sparkle of autonomy. And looking back now, from this small, quiet place that truly feels like my own, I realize something profound, something that pain and heartbreak taught me slowly, stitch by painful stitch. My biggest mistake wasn't in giving everything I had. Not really. It wasn't in pouring my life savings, my sweat, my endless love into that house, into my son, into his wife. No, the biggest mistake was expecting gratitude in return. We give because we love. We give because we want to see the people we care about happy and secure. But sometimes those who receive don't see the love. They don't see the sacrifice. They only see an opportunity. They see a resource. They saw me not as a mother, not as a woman who built a home, not as a person with feelings and dreams. They saw a solution to their problems, a convenient resource to be used, to be drained, and then to be discarded. It's a pain that has no name really. To be treated like an object by the very people you gave your life for. To be less than a person, a mere obstacle in their path to comfort. I ask myself often, when I'm sitting here, watching the fern grow near my window, and I ask you who are listening to me now, have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt like old furniture in your own home? A nuisance to the people you loved most. A burden, easily moved, easily replaced. Have you ever felt that your presence, your very being, was merely tolerated, while they quietly waited for what you had to offer? For the house, for the money, for the care, for whatever material thing they could extract. It's a crushing feeling, isn't it? It's a feeling that shrinks us, that makes us doubt our own worth, our very right to exist. It eats away at your soul, slowly, quietly, until you feel like you're just a shadow, indistinct and fading. But I learned something important from that shrinking feeling, from that profound pain. I learned that it's never, ever too late to pick up the pen and rewrite our own story. Even when your hands are old and calloused, even when your heart has been broken 1,000 times, it's never too late to say enough, to draw a line, to choose your own peace, your own quiet dignity, even if that means walking away, even if it means walking alone for a while. Because dignity, true dignity, that feeling of respecting yourself, is priceless. It truly is. And reclaiming it, piece by piece, day by day, is the greatest act of love we can ever do for ourselves. It's a radical act, sometimes to put yourself first, especially when you've spent a lifetime putting everyone else there. It wasn't easy, not at all. There were nights, even here, when the tears came, quiet and slow. Nights when the what-ifs echoed in my mind. But then the sun rises again, and the fern grows a little taller, and I remember the sparkle in my eyes. I remember that fierce, quiet autonomy. I remember what I reclaimed. After all, our life, this one precious life we have, is the only home that truly belongs to us. It is our sanctuary, our refuge, our beginning and our end. And absolutely no one has the right to make us feel like a tenant in it. No one has the right to make us feel like we have to pay rent, or earn our keep, or simply tolerate their presence in the only home that is inherently ours. We deserve to be the rightful owners of our own lives. And sometimes, letting go of what we thought was home makes way for the truest one of all. That truth, you see, it's like a warm light now, illuminating every corner of my days. My life, this one precious life I have, it truly is my ultimate home. Every quiet morning here in this small apartment, when the sun spills through my window and touches the leaves of my fern, I feel it. I feel the profound peace of simply being. No demands, no silent judgments, no one waiting for me to disappear. Just me, in my own space, deciding what the next moment will hold. I still sew, of course. My old machine hums a different tune now, a song of pure pleasure, not obligation. Each stitch is a tiny act of creation, a whisper of freedom, a testament to what I've built for myself, piece by quiet piece. I can take my time, pick the softest fabrics, let my fingers remember the familiar dance of needle and thread without the pressure of a deadline or a family's unspoken expectation. It's a joy I thought I'd lost forever. I walk in the park every afternoon, feeling the soft breeze on my face, noticing the intricate patterns of the tree bark, the delicate unfolding of new leaves. I sit on a bench and simply watch the world go by. Sometimes children laugh, their voices light and carefree, and I smile. Sometimes old couples walk hand in hand, and I feel a warmth, not of longing, but of shared humanity. I talk to my new neighbors, kind women with knowing eyes, women who understand, women who've also, in their own ways, had to reclaim their own corner of the world. We share stories over cups of tea, and there's a genuine connection, a gentle respect that warms me from the inside out. There's no pretense here, no hidden agendas, just honest conversation. And sometimes, when I look up at the vast, endless sky, I feel a lightness in my chest, a sense of boundless possibility. It's a feeling I hadn't known in so long, perhaps ever truly felt before this. A feeling that I am exactly where I need to be, precisely who I am meant to be, fully and completely myself. I wake up each day with a quiet gratitude for the simple cup of coffee, for the warmth of the sun. A world feels a little softer, a little brighter, because the weight of expectation and obligation, the crushing burden of ingratitude, has finally lifted from my shoulders. It's not about what I lost anymore. It's about what I found, my dignity, my peace, my Evelyn. I often think about those days in the big house, the silence, the creeping coldness. And I wonder, how many of us have quietly endured, hoping things would change, afraid to make a sound? How many have shrunk themselves to fit into a space that was never truly theirs? My heart aches for anyone who has felt that kind of pain, that quiet erasure. But please, if that's you, know this: you have a right to your own space, your own peace, your own joy. You have a right to be seen, to be heard, to be valued for simply being you. It's a hard lesson, sometimes the hardest, to unlearn a lifetime of putting others first, of sacrificing your own well-being for a love that wasn't truly love. But it's a lesson worth learning. It's the lesson that brings you back home to yourself. This journey, it wasn't what I planned. It was harder, lonelier than I ever imagined. It was a wrenching, painful separation, a severing of ties I thought would last forever. But it led me here, to this quiet peace, this profound sense of relief. It led me back to myself, to the woman I was always meant to be, before life and expectations began to shape me into something smaller. The quiet hum of my sewing machine, the gentle rustle of the fern, the shared smiles with new friends. These are the new sounds of my home. They are the echoes of freedom. And if my story, if these quiet moments of truth I've shared have resonated with you, if you find yourself nodding along, feeling a flicker of understanding in your own heart, then I hope we can keep sharing these times together. Because sometimes, these online spaces, they can be a bit tricky. It's just a gentle thought from me to you, like a friendly whisper. Sometimes, YouTube, bless its heart, it might just quietly unsubscribe you from channels without even a warning. So, if you feel a connection to these real stories, if you want to keep hearing them, just take a moment, a tiny moment, to confirm you're still subscribed to this channel. And maybe, if you feel inclined, tap that little bell. That way, we can keep this thread of connection going. Keep sharing these quiet truths, woman to woman, heart to heart. It means a lot, just to know we're still here, together, listening to each other. And that, after everything, is the true